Just as our first speaker, Dr. Litvan, is an institution in the atypical Parkinsonism community, Donna Shimp is an institution in the caregiver community in the field of aging. Ms. Shimp is a licensed clinical social worker. For many years, she was the program director at Family Caregiver Alliance, one of our exhibitors here today. Is Christina still here? Yes, back there. She has over 20 years experience in the field of aging as a home care and hospice social worker and director of senior services. Ms. Shimp will talk about resilience and coping strategies in the face of atypical Parkinsonism disorders.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay, I'm going to start where I was going to stop because you've been sitting all afternoon. And one of the things I'm going to tell you about is this guy in India who what he used to do is he would go to work every morning and he would get a bunch of his buddies together and they would tell jokes to each other. And he found that their days went a whole lot better because they would start the day by laughing. And then he realized that you actually don't even need to tell a joke to start laughing. And so he started what are called laughter clubs. Has anybody ever heard of laughter clubs? Yeah, some people have. So we're going to have our own personal laughter club here right now. And I'm going to do it first, and then we'll explain it afterwards. So I'm going to walk across this way. And as I get to you, I want you to start laughing. And you need to keep laughing. You can't stop, okay? So we're starting here. Start laughing. Everybody more awake? Yeah, because when we laugh, we give ourselves what's called an internal massage. And that internal massage gives off endorphins. Endorphins are the hormone that make us feel good. And one of the ways you're going to stay resilient, if you're going to be a caregiver or if you're going to dealing with a chronic illness, is you need all the endorphins you can get. And so you've got to find ways to laugh often, every day, every hour, whatever it takes to keep doing that. And remember, just like you just did it, you don't need anything to make you laugh. You can just laugh. It increases your lung capacity. It does all these other things for you. So that's good. That was where I was going to stop, but I figured you needed it now to start. So what is resilience? Resilience is our ability to cope with stuff. You know, particularly when bad things happen. And how do we maintain our center when those things are happening to us? And, and when we go through grief and loss and bad stuff happening, the question isn't not whether we go through those things or not, because we all do. But the issue is, how do we spring back? Can we spring back? How do we bring ourselves, up? So it's not about just surviving. It's about coming back to a place that really works for us. It's a process. It's something that we can all learn. We used to say that resilience was, some people are born more resilient than others. That's a genetic thing. And so if I don't have it, then I don't have to worry about it. But, it's actually something that you can learn. And we all can, it's a skill we can all develop. So right now, what I like, I love for somebody or a couple people to yell out, when you've gone through bad stuff in the past, how did you cope? How did you get through it? Friends. Cry. Pray. Watch television. Pardon? Eat. I always recommend hot fudge sundaes. Okay, what else? Writing, journaling, we're going to talk about that. Yeah, what else? Learning more, getting information. All right, so we all have skills that we've all used in the past to get us through difficult times. And what we're going to talk about really is, in some ways, doing this consciously instead of unconsciously. Just really making decisions about what our coping skills are going to be. So this one says, Bruce, it's almost July. Where's this year going? The pace of life is so hectic, meetings, phone messages, faxes, appointments, errands, traffic, bills to be paid. It's hot, I'm overworked, I'm underpaid, I'm stressed out. What problems do birds have? Cats, that's about it. I hate you. Okay? So, what we know is that we do have some control over negative life situations or adverse situations. I was just watching on television, I don't know if anybody saw this on NPR. There was a show on the happiness quotient or something like that. Happiness, what's it called? The happiness advantage. Yeah, which talks about what are the ways, what we know is that there's research that really shows that we can actually consciously make ourselves happy. And when you were talking about smiling, he said that even if you have trouble smiling, putting a pencil in your mouth this way, and that your brain doesn't know the difference between you're actually smiling and you're forcing yourself to smile. But your brain feels good whenever you smile, whichever way you get it to happen. What we know is that the most important thing for resilience is relationships. The most important way we're going to become resilient is what kind of social support, friendship networks, aunt, uncles, cousins, neighbors, whatever we can find, different people of our faith community. Whatever social support we get, the more resilient we're going to be. So this is one of the reasons why I'm going to talk to you about getting help and reaching out. What we know is that if you can reach out and you can make some realistic plans and keep yourself, your sense of yourself, that you will be able to handle things better. And that when you find something that works, what you want to do is keep doing it because success begets success. So sometimes people will say, well, I can't do that. And I'll say, or it won't work with the person I'm caring for. And I'll say, how do you know? I said, try it. It'll either work or it won't work. If it doesn't work, then you've learned something. If it works, you also have learned something. So we need to remember that, it's not, we sometimes just stop ourselves rather than just going and trying it. What do you have to lose? So this says, the greater the work ethic, the larger pile of things that never get done. Because we all know that one of the reasons we don't do anything is because we have so many things on that to-do list. Now, how many people are using the dining room table as their horizontal filing cabinet? Yeah. Okay. So one of my friends who does hospice work said, no one ever dies with everything checked off their to-do list. So we just have to stop harassing ourselves about getting all that stuff done and figure out what else is really important in life. Sometimes that stuff is important. I'm not saying that. But we have to think of how to get our life in balance. So when we feel competent, and so how many of you make your to-do list by putting the hardest thing to do first, and how many of you do it with putting the easiest thing to do first? How many for the hardest thing first? Okay, how many of you for the easiest thing first? Good, because if you do the easiest thing first, you succeed. And that actually gives you the energy to do the next thing. So I really want to encourage you to look at your to-do list in terms of how do you get to feel successful? Because feeling successful is going to make you resilient. It makes you feel more competent. And, we want you to feel competent so that you can take on some of the harder tasks that you may have to do. One of the things we need is support groups. How many of you are attending support groups? Good. Support groups. Asking for and accepting help. And then, be real aware there are professional counselors out there who can help you because you don't have to do this alone. We're all making it up. We all think we can pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. But sometimes we just need someone who will listen. How many people are not calling their friends because they don't want to hear about it anymore? We don't want to burden family. We don't want to tell anybody else about our problems because we want to keep it private. We stop asking for that help. And so sometimes going to a professional counselor is a way to get someone who will listen to us and can understand and be a support for us. And we don't have to take care of them, because we stopped doing that. And the other thing is taking care of your own health. Now, how many people have gone to the doctor for themselves, the caregivers right now? How many people have gone to the doctor for themselves in the last 6 months? Good work. Okay. Because, if something happens to you, the person you're caring for is going to be up the creek. So we need you to take care of yourself. Now, how many people have had someone say to them, is there anything I can do to help? And what did you say? You said yes? You guys all said yes? Whoa, we'll let you know. We'll let you know. Okay. Usually when I ask that question, people said, generally what we say is, oh no, that's okay. Or I'll let you know, or one of those kinds of things, right? So I want to teach everybody to know how to answer that question. So when somebody says, is there anything I can do to help? What is the answer? Yes. Oh, well, come on. Make it sound like you mean it. Is there anything I can do to help? Yes. Yes. What can they do to help you? What are some things they can do? Visit. Shop. Get information online. What? What else? Go take somebody to an appointment. What else? Walk the dog. What else can people do for you? Cook a meal. What else? Vacuum the living room. No joke. Absolutely. What else? Good. Visit so that you can, as a caregiver, you can get out of the house. Or you want somebody to come and visit with you so that you have someone else to talk to. If you guys are just with each other all day, every day, you're going to get tired of each other. I don't care what illness you're dealing with, right? You need to get out every once in a while. Okay? What else can people do? Help with household maintenance, yeah, or help you find a plumber or an electrician or whatever. Help do some of the stuff that you need done. What else? Help you to celebrate holidays. Great. So what I want you all to do is put a list of the things somebody can do to help you and put it on your refrigerator. Because when somebody says, is there anything I can do to help, it's really good to have a list to look at and say, well, here's the things on my list that I need help with. Because otherwise you're going to think, well, yeah, but I don't know what I need help with, or I don't know. And, I've taught you to say yes, and then you're going to go, I don't know, So have a list of things people can do. They can do gardening. They can go run errands. They can, they can do all kinds of things for you that you might not have the time to do. Looking up research on the internet, all those things you mentioned are all things people can do. So you want to make sure you have a list so that when they ask you, you have something to give them to do. And I'll tell you why this is important. This is not just important for you and for your own ability to cope, but this is important because it gives you brownie points in heaven. It gives brownie points in heaven for the person who asked you. Because when they do something nice for you, how do they get to feel? They get to feel good about themselves, and they got 10 brownie points. So, we don't want to deprive them of that. So I really want you to really think about how do you help people, because you're helping them feel good. And again, success begets success. So if someone had the chance to do something for you and they got to feel good, are they going to offer again? Yeah. And if you say no, you know what happens? You end up having to be the one who then calls them and says, oh, I do have something you can help me with. And now they have the option of saying what? No. And then what do we get to feel? We get to feel bad, and no one will ever help, and I can't ever ask anybody ever again, right? So I really, really want you to think about how are you going to do this so that you will be able to get through better, and you will, again, have increased your support system, because having that support system is the most important thing in keeping you resilient. So we want you to be able to cope with the stress of having a chronic illness or taking care of someone with a chronic illness without hurting yourself, because the stress was going to make us feel awful. We're feeling stressful. We give off a hormone called cortisol, and cortisol is a hormone that decreases our immune system, and that's the one that makes you more vulnerable to getting colds and getting sick and everything like that, which is why we need to laugh, because that's the endorphins. The endorphins counter the cortisol. So we really want to find ways to cope with our stress so that we have more endorphins and less cortisol. And you really need to think that, like, by getting some help and by, using laughter and other techniques and allowing your friends to support you, that you actually can manage. Because when we feel hopeless and helpless, that's when we give up and that's when we get frustrated. I really want to tell you, one of the other most important resilient issues is not keeping secrets. If you're not telling everybody what's going on and you can't talk about what's going on, it takes a toll on you. For both you who are caregivers and for you who have chronic illnesses. So I really want to tell you, keeping secrets can really be hard. And the more that you can be open about what's going on, again, it actually increases your resilience because you're depressing yourself when you don't tell people. People mention prayer as a way to cope. Whatever our spiritual beliefs or spiritual practice might be, that's another way to help us to cope. And by the way, helping others, you'd be surprised how many people have told me that, they're a caregiver at home, but really what they do is they go volunteer and do something else. Because it gets you out of the house, gets you away from the situation, and helping others, again, because that gives us our brownie points in heaven. We get to take care of somebody else or take care of another situation or weed a garden or whatever we do. We get to feel good about ourselves that way. So just because you're a caregiver doesn't mean you can't help somebody else. So this says, you try to do too much, Marcy, someday your head is going to fall off. Well, maybe you're right. I'll come out for a while. And she says, see, if you relax now and then, your head won't fall off. So what are the things that we need to do to help us build our resilience? We've been talking about that. But first of all, we have to define what we're dealing with. And if we define the illness as something that's unbearable and I won't be able to cope with it, then it will be true. It is unbearable and you won't be able to cope with it. That's not to say that the illnesses you're dealing with aren't really awful. I could use another word, but it's a swear word. Aren't really awful situations. But the thing is, the more we can cope with things we need to cope with, the easier it will be to deal with it. We have to learn to accept the things we cannot change. We can't change the diagnosis. But as you've heard today, you can do exercise. You can learn swallowing techniques. You can do things that are going to make it easier to cope along the way or to keep you healthy longer. Have realistic goals. So one of the things we need to know, one of the things that Maggie talked about was prevention and planning. Having plans so that we know what is going to happen, what to expect, and what we're going to do when that happens is going to make it a lot easier than having to make decisions at an emergency level. You want to make as many positive decisions as you can. And, take decisive actions in adverse situations. I want you to know that means using a walker or a cane when you need to. So many people don't want to use those kinds of things, but that's a gift to your caregiver as well as to yourself. As you're dealing with this loss, one of the things you want to do is to do some internal work, is to think about how is this for me? What's this mean in terms of my whole lifespan? This is just a part of your life. And to really, it's really a time maybe to have some quiet time to think about some of the other things that you didn't have time to do. You can't be perfect. No one here is perfect, except me, of course. And so, be aware that being perfect is a way to set yourself up to fail. You all have to learn ways to forgive yourself and to know that you're not doing it just perfectly. You do have to have that long-term perspective because on the day-to-day basis, you might get frustrated. Anybody here ever get frustrated? Yeah. You might actually lose your cool. You might get mad. You might do all kinds of things. But, the long term is you're caring for somebody, or you're being cared for. And what we need to know is that we can do those things and not be perfect, but we can do it from a loving place. So whatever kind of optimism or hopefulness that you can come up with, that's what you're needing. And this is the one, I always like. Take care of your mind and body, exercise, eat right, sleep, and laugh. Easy for me to stand here and say, right? If you just have proper nutrition, get enough sleep, and do your exercise every day, you're not going to have any problems, right? Right. Yeah, I know that. Right. And how many of you get to sleep through the night? No hands go. One person, nobody gets to sleep through the night, particularly if you're a caregiver. But also if you, because of all the other things that are happening as we age, we're getting up for all kinds of reasons. But remember, exercise can be defined as walking around the block. So just be aware that, again, we can talk, it's easy for us to stand here and say you need to exercise. It's really true. And again, this is as important for the caregivers as it is for, all of you with atypical Parkinsonism. Both of you need to exercise. It's not just one of you. Be aware that we each have our own set of needs and feelings, and our needs and feelings may not be the same. What I might feel as a caregiver and what you might feel as someone with, Lewy body may not be the same, and that doesn't make one of us right or wrong. We both have the right to our whole range of emotions. And, it's really important to have a sense of purpose and meaning in life. And purpose and meaning may be caregiving, purpose and meaning may be finishing something that's not finished for us, but something that gives us a reason for getting up in the morning. With all the illnesses that you're dealing with, you still need a reason to get up in the morning. Be aware that we all have strengths and weaknesses, and we're not wrong because we have a weakness, but we can, use our strengths to deal with things, and maybe we can use friends and other people to deal with the places where we're not quite so good. So if you're not really good at bookkeeping, maybe you have a friend who is, who can help you with the books or something like that. So really look at how do you use your skills and your strengths and make them the things you're doing, and you're not spending your time doing the things that are not easy for you to do. And, the real thing is to be real aware that by advocating with your doctors and getting information, that there are ways that you can actually affect change and to help the person that you're caring for, and that gives you a sense of control. So this one says, can't you ever relax? Because he keeps pulling the ball up the hill. So for all of you who are caregivers, caregivers generally want to do everything. And you need to, of course, balance your own self-care with the care of somebody else. And I really want you, again, to focus on what you can do and not on what you can't do. That's why there are hired attendants. That's why there are friends. That's why there's families. That's why there's social service agencies. There are people out there who can help you. It's not all up to you to do everything. If you're caring for somebody, you need to change your expectations of yourself. Back to you can't be perfect. You can't do it all either. There's no way you can do it all. You need to monitor your emotions. You're allowed all of them, by the way. You're allowed to be angry, resentful, pissed. You're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to be happy. You're allowed to go have a good time without the person you're caring for. You have a right to everything that everybody else has in life. Because you're a caregiver doesn't mean you're only allowed to live within this framework. And you can't do that if you don't get breaks. Every caregiver needs a break. And we know that when caregivers get breaks, that for the next 5 to 7 days, they have more energy, get frustrated less, and they're more able to cope with the person that they're caring for. So whether you go out to lunch with a friend or go to a movie or take a walk by yourself, you need some kind of break. You cannot do this 24/7. One of the things that happens when you're dealing with this is that people have told you what they think you should be doing. Anybody been told what they should be doing and how to take care of their person? Yeah, I see some heads going, yeah. Okay, they're not living here. They don't know what you need and what you don't need. But sometimes we think that we have to live up to other people's expectations of how we should be. So I really want you to know it's between you and the person you're caring for. You guys need to work it out. But it's not about what other people think you should be doing. But what happens is when other people tell us what we should be doing, what do? We start thinking that we should be doing those things, and we change how we are. So I really want you to learn how to set that limit and say, no, I know what's going on here. You can't tell me how to do it. And we've talked about taking care of your own health, knowing when you have to say no. Remember I told you that when anybody asks you if there's anything you can do to help, the answer is, and if someone says, hey, I need cupcakes tomorrow, can you do that? The answer is, right. We have to learn how to say yes when it's appropriate, and we have to know when to say no when it's appropriate. And I really encourage you all to keep a gratitude journal. And the guy who did this thing, the happiness advantage, thank you, says that, every day to write down 3 things that you are grateful for. And if you do that just every day for 21 days, write down 3 things that you're grateful for, there is actually a change in your brain, and your brain feels better. You feel better. So just keeping a gratitude journal of the things that, that the sun was shining today, or maybe it was that it was raining today. Sometimes, the best, I feel grateful because someone canceled something on me that I was supposed to do because that gave me some more free time. There's all kinds of things you can be grateful for, as well as just waking up that morning. So just really think about having that gratitude journal. And this says, this prescription will help, the doctor's talking to the caregiver, will help with his depression. He can take it at night before bedtime. Not another pill. He has so many. And he takes them at the same time every day? Yes, every day at the same time. And the doctor says, Iris, how are you coping with all of this? It's not easy being a caregiver. Are you okay? Tell me honestly. She says, can you give me a prescription for some hugs? Now, I don't know how many of you have doctors who actually turn to you as caregivers and say, and how are you doing? But you need people in your life who will turn to you and say, and how are you doing? Not how's your husband doing, how's your wife doing, how's your mother doing, how's your father doing, but how are you doing? This is the important piece. So for all of you who have the atypical Parkinsonism, we're talking about your resilience. So people can't anticipate what you need. It's important that you ask. Believe it or not, as good as we are, we're not mind readers. So the thing is that we need you to tell us when you need help and what kind of help you need. Again, just like with the caregivers, what we want you to do is focus on what you can do. It's so easy for you to think about the things that you can't do. And maybe you need to find alternative ways to do things that you used to do. And we're going to talk in a minute about loss. But one of the things that's happening is that there are things that you might not be able to do that you were able to do yesterday. And so, you do have some loss, but you still have things that you are able to do. Again, keep a gratitude journal, because even though you have an illness, a chronic illness, and an illness that's debilitating, doesn't mean you have no reason to get up in the morning, no reason to not smile at people or laugh. I remember my mother-in-law saying that when my father-in-law was dying, she said, the most important thing was that every day he looked at me and said, I love you, thank you. And that was what kept her going. So remember that you're going to have good days and bad days. We all have good days and bad days. You also have a right to all of them. Your right to be angry and happy and sad and glad and frustrated. You have the right to all the same feelings that your caregiver does. Again, it's not that you can only live in this section. You have the right to the whole range. And adjust your reality to your reality, which is that use the assistive devices that will help you and will give you as much independence as you can. And they also help your caregiver. So this is a woman talking to her mother, who happens to be a cockroach, and says, nonsense, mother, you'll probably outlive us all. So one of the things I want to talk about is grief, because whenever you're dealing with a chronic illness and a terminal illness, there is grief related to that. There's grief when you got the diagnosis. There's grief when you stop being able to do things. And these are the classic stages that we go through when we're dealing with grief, which is one, denial. Oh no, that can't really be true. Are you sure that's the right diagnosis? Anger, why me? Why is this happening to me? Bargaining, well, I'll do this, and maybe, and we try to negotiate what we can do that will make it better. Often we get depression, and we feel really bummed out. I mean, rightfully so. And then there's a sense of acceptance. Now, when this was first proposed, people thought that people went through these 5 stages, like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. All right, I'm in acceptance. I'm okay. What we know is that that's not true, that people cycle through all of these different emotions. And not just the people who have the illnesses, but the caregivers also. And the problem is that each of you may be going through these stages of grief, but you might not be on the same one at the same time. And that can cause some conflict in a relationship. So if I'm at acceptance and you're at anger, we might not be, I might go stop it. What, I'm okay. I mean, yeah, we might be out of sync, but be real aware that we are both cycling through these things because these are the normal and natural ways that we cope with bad news. And again, part of resilience is learning that we have emotions, accepting those emotions, dealing with them, and moving on. So, part of our grief and loss is to understand and accept that we're going to get down, that grieving is necessary and an important part of what we're doing. One of my caregivers said that she used to go once a week out to the ocean and she'd write down the things that her husband couldn't do anymore that week and like throw it into the ocean as her way of letting go, as a ritual to deal with her grief. And be aware that we're dealing with other kinds of loss. We often think about grief and loss in terms of death and dying, but we have grief and loss in terms of the fact that however we wrote the story about the future, it's different now. However, whoever the person was that, that we were caring for, they may be different now. We have the loss of the relationship as the way it was. If we're adult children caring for a parent, we may not be able to do the things that, my mother was my best friend, I may not be able to get that friendship thing from her anymore. Who did the cooking or who did the bookkeeping or who did the roles in your life? And now, one of the things the caregivers say most often to me is now I have to do everything because it's not a shared task anymore. So there may be the loss of those roles. And, particularly again for the people who are dealing with the Parkinsonism, is that you have your loss of independence. But caregivers are also dealing with loss of independence because they feel like they can't leave. They can't do things. They feel like they have to be at home. So I'm not going to read all these, but these are in your handout. But these are some of our common stressors. That the care receiver is angry and resistant. Yeah, I would be too. It's hard to do all those physical care needs, like the transfer skills that we learned today. Physical care needs. What do you think is one of the main complaints of caregivers? Back pain. Because transferring can cause that. That's why you need physical therapy evaluations to teach you how to do it right. Change. None of us likes to deal with change. It's just hard. Uncertainty. Absolutely. Dealing with the medical system. Anybody have problems with doctors? Oh, you guys are so well behaved. I know what the story is. Money's always an issue because there's just never, ever enough of it. The legal matters like getting advanced healthcare directives and are people's names on checkings and bank accounts and do you have wills and trusts and all the other things that you need to do. Legal matters are really important. Can I keep somebody at home? Can we live at home together or do we need another kind of housing situation? If somebody's having memory problems, can I leave them alone or do I have to be with them or do they need to go to, an adult daycare program or what kinds of options do I have? Is someone still driving and should they be? How about someone doesn't want the treatment that the doctor says? I was just at the doctor yesterday with my husband and, and the doctor said, well, we could do this or we could do that. And of course he said, well, of course I don't want that, And, the doctor says, all right, we can wait 2 months. But, it's like, often, the people don't want to go through more stuff than they've had to go through. And then, as a caregiver, when we get frustrated and we get angry and we lose it, we get to feel guilty, right? Anybody ever feel guilty? Yeah. And guilt leads to depression. So I want to teach you another word today, which is the word regret. Okay, guilty means you did something wrong. Regret is you're dealing with a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad situation. And sometimes you have to make terrible, horrible, no good, very bad decisions. And sometimes you lose it. Okay? So learning how to forgive ourselves is really, really important. If we're, because when we lose it, we've had a frustrating day, we're cranky, we're all those things that normal human beings are, but you're taking care of somebody, we feel bad. So I want you to know that you have to forgive yourself because you are going to have days like that. And in fact, all of you who have the Parkinsonism, I bet you there are days that you treat your caregiver badly and you need to learn how to forgive yourself on that also. because again, we all have cranky days. So I'm not going to read this, but it's like how much stress is too much stress. And what happens is it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until he blows his head off. And it says, at that point, too much stress. Because we all have stress. Depression. Yeah, we also often think that depression is being sad and guilty, worried, alone, crying. But some people get more agitated when they get depressed. They get frustrated more easily. They get cranky. So sometimes depression, we say, well, I'm not depressed. But what it is that you're jumping at everybody. So just be aware that being angry and frustrated may be a sign of depression. But it's also, as a caregiver, we're particularly sensitive to feeling unappreciated and ineffective because we can't control these things. We're dealing with an illness that we can't control. No matter how well you do it, this disease is going to progress. No matter what we do, we can't change those things. So what happens is we often put our personal needs on the back burner. What we want to do is to be real aware that our needs have to be front and center all the time. When we're depressed, when we go do things that are fun, what we find is that we're not having fun. That whole question, are we having fun yet? Well, we might not be having fun, but we need to find ways that we actually can have fun. And in the happiness advantage, he talks about doing something for 15 minutes every day that's truly fun, that will make us laugh, that will make us really feel good inside. The sleeping. So many caregivers are so exhausted. We used to do caregiver retreats, and one of the things we found is that when caregivers would go, we being Family Caregiver Alliance, which if you want to know about is back there, when caregivers would get a chance to go away for a weekend, the thing they would do is sleep. That's what they most wanted and needed to do because they're exhausted. And sometimes just not being able to get help is one of the other things that will lead to depression. So once we're depressed, it's really hard to get going. It's hard to use the resources that are there. And we isolate from friends. We don't use the social support that we might have. But I really want you to know depression's treatable. Depression's a biological issue about the serotonin in our brains. I'm sure you've heard this before. If you were diabetic, you would take your insulin. If you're depressed, sometimes we need something that helps us with the serotonin levels. So depression is treatable. You can take medication. You can get counseling. But one of the best ways to get over depression is exercise. Because when you exercise, your body gives off endorphins. Endorphins are the ones that make us feel good. So exercise gives us endorphins. And the other way, of course, is to get those brownie points in heaven. So it goes, rerun, where were you yesterday? I hid under my bed all day. I think it's something everyone should do once in a while. What does your dad think about all this? He didn't go to work today. He's hiding under the bed. Sometimes we need to hide under the bed. Okay, anger. Why me? We get frustrated with the person who is ill, and then we get frustrated with ourselves. We get angry at the people who aren't being supportive or who aren't understanding. If there's a family member who questions the diagnosis, which often happens, or if there's a family member who is just, not coming forth. By the way, people don't know that we need help unless we let them know. So sometimes, particularly for family members, you need to say, I need help. Or if you have a long distance, like if long distance child or sibling or whatever, call and say, hey, can you come stay here for a weekend? I need to get away. We need to actually ask for help. And when somebody is ill and we're a caregiver, what we do is that there's no safe way for us to express it because we feel guilty if we're going to get mad at the person we're caring for. But let's face it, we are impatient and we are irritable. So this one says, I always take a photo of my Christmas gifts so I can compare from year to year. I think this is my best year yet. And she says, and this tells you what? That you were extra good? That your dad got a raise? That your mom scored on the stock market? No, that I've perfected my whining and begging. So self-monitor your emotions, write about them. That gratitude journal is really good. Change your negative self-talk. When we say no one will help me, we can change that to I need to find out where I can get help and who I can ask. I can't do it all. Absolutely, you can't do it all. What I can do is, it's not fair. You're absolutely right. It's not fair. It's never going to be fair. That's true. But if we start whining about it's not being fair, then we're going to get ourselves in trouble. We do an all or nothing thing, like either it's going to be this way or it's going to be that way. And to think that we forget about the gray area between two choices. This always happens to me, overgeneralizing, and assuming that we can mind read. So she says, my life is ruined, and Charlie Brown says, when your life has been ruined, you should lie under a tree all afternoon. So change. What you're dealing with by having, an illness like, atypical Parkinsonism is change. It's change every day for you as patients. It's change every day for you as caregivers. It's happening. This is change. I'm just going to read you the cartoon first. Nothing is permanent. Everything changes. That's the one thing we know for sure in this world. And he says, yeah, but I'm still going to gripe about it. So we want to educate others so that people, when they come by, are visiting, they know what's going on, what to expect, and how to get, and how to interact with us. We talked about finding meaning. We talked about writing a journal, acknowledging ourselves. That gratitude journal can be, I did a good job today. That gratitude journal can be to say, I did the best I could today. Okay? We need to stay busy. Sometimes we will, for us that, they were talking about perseveration in language. We have perseveration in thoughts. We go over the same thing over and over again. Write it down and get it out of our head. Have a structure. Having a schedule to the day can really, really help. Really letting know that this is life. I'll survive. I'll survive in whatever way I do, but I'll get through it. Generate options. I know that when I get stuck, I write an option list of all the different things I can do. And whether I do them or not doesn't help. It's just the idea that there are other ideas out there makes me feel better. We can't cling to the past. We can enjoy the past, but thinking, well, this is, it used to be like this, keeps us stuck there rather than dealing with what's happening right now. I really, encourage therapy. Reading just any kind of book, but particularly self-help books can sometimes be a help. We've already talked about exercise. Coming up with our own creativity, coming up with creative solutions. You'd be surprised how many caregivers and people, with chronic illnesses have come up with incredible solutions for how to solve a given problem. So maybe using your creativity, all you ex-engineers out there can maybe come up with ideas that will help you to cope with what's going on, and your spirituality. So never pass up an opportunity to network with others. Always accept acceptance of health. Have a mental list of jobs ready. We've talked about those things. Request help for care for both you and your family members. And just remember that little things on a regular basis can help. So maybe you're not going to get dinner every night, but maybe once a month someone can give you that. And household chores are one of the things. So here's this person that says, I'm sorry, there I am going on, and I haven't even asked you how you feel about being caught in a trap. Okay, so you can come up with your own list of stress relievers, but we all need a list. And sometimes it really helps to have that list written down so that when you're feeling stressed, and Hot Fudge Sundays isn't on there, I'm sorry to say, but when you're feeling bad, you can look at your list and say, oh, that's something I could do. Because when we're feeling stressed is the time when we're least likely to come up with what it is we want to do. And this is just about how, this woman's in a bad mood, she shares it, they talk about it, and they end up both in a good mood. Touch. One of the things that happens when you have a disease like Parkinsonism is often we're not touched except for people doing things for us and to us, like helping us dress or helping us bathe or helping us eat or helping us walk. We all need some touch. We all need a loving touch, even if it's just holding a hand. And just do it to yourself right now. Just take your hand and just kind of, touch your hand and see how soothing that is and how it feels. Remember that we all need to be touched. Our skin is our biggest sense organ. We all need to be touched. So we can do it through hand holding, we can do it through massaging, even setting the shower on the massage, setting if you have a shower head, professional, hugs, cuddling, pets. Pets often give us a lot of touch. We need ways to feel that we've been touched in a nurturing way. And laughter. Laughter strengthens the immune system. It increases our lung capacity. You all felt that when we did that. It's an internal massage. It actually uses the muscles of our core. If you've taken Pilates and you've heard the word core till you're sick of hearing it, but you can laugh. It does the same thing. So now you don't have to take Pilates. It relaxes our muscles. It relieves pain. It relieves stress. And it helps you to get along better with others. And it helps you to perform better, be more creative, and most importantly, get perspective. So this says, you do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. Finding laughters. Where can you do it other than what we've just been doing? Movies, tapes, CDs, TVs, comedians, bumper stickers, friends with a good sense of humor. I don't know how many get cartoons or definitely through their email, but that's a really good way. I have a stack of cards I send out, and my friends have cards and they send me. Our pets. My husband and I love to laugh about our cat. Books, newspapers, politicians can make you laugh any day. Children and laughter clubs. So before I end, I'm going to do the exercise I did because I want you to go home awake. And then I have one last slide for you. So we're going to try this again because anybody who felt funny the last time needs to try it again. You all there? Okay, here's your last slide. The end is not near. You must learn to cope. Good.
Okay, hand in your questions. Raise your hands. We've got quite a few here already. How do I cope with the feeling that my spouse is turning into a petty tyrant? I don't know how or where to draw the line between his wants and needs.
Okay, first of all, you might want to make a list of what is needed and what has to happen each day, and also having a schedule of the day. Sometimes when we have a chronic illness, we get to feel sorry for ourselves. And when we're feeling sorry for ourselves, some of the things we do is we get whiny and demanding. So one thing might be to start talking about that issue, which is how do I cope with this illness, and how do I cope with the fact that my frustration and the things I can't do anymore, and help you to get to another place where you can negotiate what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done. And it's also okay to maybe sometimes hire help and get somebody else in there to do some of those things so it's not all on you.
Okay. My father is primary caregiver for my mother. He refuses outside help or support groups. He will only allow my sister and me to help sometimes. On several occasions, we have come upon him being mean, yelling at my mother, pushing her. We suspect he has done worse. What do we do?
If possible, I would really encourage you to go and stay with your mom and to be there for a couple days just to give him a break, because obviously he's doing the 24/7 thing, and by definition, he's really not doing very well. And so, he won't let anybody else from the outside coming in, but if you say, look, I'll spend the night with mom tonight, and you go sleep in the other room and get a good night's sleep, something like that, you figure out what he will let you do, because if he gets a break, then he might be willing to do it. The other thing is I would talk to his doctor, have his doctor maybe evaluate him for things like depression, and maybe the doctor could, sometimes people will I always say call on a higher power, which is sometimes people will do things if the doctor says that you need to do it. So maybe the doctor could write a prescription that he takes 1 hour off every day or something like that will give him the break that he needs. because he's so stressed and so burnt out that that's why he's being abusive, because that's not what he wants. The other thing, if you see him doing it, is to say, Dad, I don't really think that's how you want to be treating Mom, and I understand you must be angry and frustrated right now. Acknowledge his feelings. Instead of telling him not to do it, let him know that you understand his feelings, and maybe that will let him put his guard down a little bit, and it's really a hard situation. But I would keep the conversation open with your doctor all the time, because you actually need a doctor's referral to get hospice. So I really want you to bring it up to the doctor, say, would he qualify? Can I have the hospice people come out and do an evaluation? Because the hospice will come and evaluate someone, even if the doctor's doesn't necessarily think this is right. And sometimes, it's a good thing, because a friend of mine actually just put her mother on hospice, and once she got all the attention of hospice, she got better. But you were on for 3 months. And so, the hospice can actually help stabilize someone sometimes for 3 months. And then it's renewed for another 3 months. So, really, if you have any sense of that, ask the doctor, get the hospice evaluation, because you do want to get it as early as possible, because all that help and support makes your job easier.
My husband is 50 years old with end-stage Parkinson's disease dementia and on hospice. When he asks about his past, present, and future, should we tell him the truth or hold back the most difficult pieces of information?
It depends. First of all, it depends on how severe the dementia is. Can someone process this information? Or is giving them that information just going to make them feel bad? Because, if getting the information that you're terminally ill and you're going to die is going to be, just make him feel bad because he can't process that information due to the dementia, then that's not what you want to say. So what you do want to say is something, kind of neutral, which is, well, we're taking care of you the best we can. Or we're going to go to the doctors and we're going to do, you want to make his life as happy or as good as we can make it under the circumstances. So, it depends, again, on what he cannot understand. But mostly what I would do would be to be very kind of neutral and encouraging.
You mentioned educating others. Can you give some example of what you mean?
Family members. How many have ever had a family member, again, who doesn't believe in the diagnosis, or who thinks you're making it up? And part of the thing is, even with people who have dementia, they have moments of lucidity. And when do they have them? In the doctor's office and when someone's visiting, right? And so no one believes you that these things are happening. So, letting people get information, every time you go to the doctor's office, sending an email to all the important people in life and letting them know what happened or what the doctor had to say, keeping everybody informed, sending them to websites where they can get information so that you don't have to be the one educating everybody. So everybody's on the same page, just makes your job easier.
Could you give some suggestions for resources for end-of-life planning along the lines of advanced care directives?
Every hospital, has classes and workshops, on advanced health care directives. Kaiser does it. All the hospitals have classes. Also, a lot of the senior centers have classes on it. So just, check your senior resources. You can also go online and click on Compassion and Choices, or the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization, which is NHPCO, .org. You can go online and get some information. Sacramento Healthcare Decisions. There's a bunch of places out there, but you also want to do this in collaboration with filling out advanced healthcare directives. It's really important you fill out the PULSE and the advanced healthcare directive. But more importantly, it's important that you have a conversation with everybody who's going to be involved. Sometimes if you're having trouble bringing this subject up, it's easy to have the doctor bring it up. And, again, calling on a higher power to bring it in. But if you can, Thanksgiving's coming up. I always suggest to people that the day after Thanksgiving, you sit everybody around the table at lunchtime and say, we're going to have an end-of-life discussion party, and have everybody talk about it. Because if you have adult children or anybody else, we all need to have, how many of you have that completed? No, about half of you, okay? It's something we all need to have. And the younger you are, actually, the more you need it. because the younger you are, is the more reason why people are not going to necessarily do what you would want. So anybody over 18 needs to have this completed. Get a bunch of forms. You can get them from your doctor, from your hospital, from online. Have the party, sit down, and talk, 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 talk. That's really the main thing.
One resource that we've used in our family, Donna, and by the way, we do our meeting before dessert on Thanksgiving. That's our annual discussion.
So dessert is your reward, right?
Yes, indeed. And we take out, we use the 5 wishes document, which I like a lot.
That was back there. They have the 5 wishes back there.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, Matched Caregivers. Kathy has them back there. It's a wonderful document. I really recommend it. And another one I wanted to know if you had any experience with are the Go Wish cards. We've used them in our family.
There's all kinds of things out there. I really encourage you to look at what's out there. And Compassion Choices has a form that's similar to 5 wishes but different. So, I mean, there are a lot of things out there that I really would encourage you all to do.
One thing about the Go Wish cards, it's named patterned after Go Fish. You know, you say so you have a deck of cards, and on the cards there might be 40 cards, and each card has a statement. For example, I don't want to be a burden to my family, or I want my loved ones with me when I die, or I don't want my loved ones with me when I die. I want my pet with me. So all of these statements, and we did it with my mother and her husband last Thanksgiving, indeed. And my mother's husband selected a card that said, I want to be clean. And I asked him, well, what does that mean? What do you mean by clean? And he said, well, I want to, if I've soiled my Depends, I want to be changed immediately, but I don't want to have my Depends changed in front of family. And so now we know that that's a very important issue to him, and so we can be aware of that. But what we did was everybody came up with, we looked at each through the deck of cards, and we figured out which 5 were the most important to us, and we wrote little notes about them on the side, and we made a photocopy of them and passed them around to all the family members so they're aware of the discussion. And I think it's so helpful to have those conversation starters, because sometimes you don't know how to get going on that.
But it's the most important conversation you can have, and everybody needs to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think this is a plug question from the back row there. How can Family Caregiver Alliance help me?
Did you write that, Christina?
She claims she didn't.
Family Caregiver Alliance is an agency that's been around for 35 years. We serve the 6 Bay Area counties. And if you live outside the 6 Bay Area counties, there's a network of 11 caregiver resource centers throughout the state of California. So wherever you live, we can refer you to a caregiver resource center. The caregiver resource centers were started because we know of the stress that happens for caregivers. Caregivers have a 50% higher incidence of depression, and they die 5 to 7 years earlier than people who are not caregivers. So we know that there's a big toll that is taken by virtue of you being a caregiver. So our job at Family Caregiver Alliance is to support you as the family member, as the unpaid member who's doing this care for somebody. And we come and meet with you in your home. We talk to you about your caregiving situation. We try to connect you with resources that may help you. We do classes and workshops on a regular basis. We have funding that can sometimes pay for counseling or respite care or attorney referrals. You know, all of this all depends on funding cycles and a lot of other things. But we have some funds to help you. But mostly you have somebody who you can call and talk to about your caregiving situation, who will be a support and will understand what you're going through.
Okay, here's another question. Are you in private practice? If so, where do you practice and how much do you charge?
Talk to me afterwards.
Good answer. One says, this is not a question, just a thought to make us smile. And we know you like smiling and laughing. I know God will not give me more than I can deal with. I just wish he didn't have so much confidence in me. Thank you very much, Donna.
Okay, there's one more. What happened here?
Oh, I think it just went to sleep.
Okay, wait a minute.
Oh. It's coming back.
It didn't come.
That's my screensaver.
Oh,
so
well, it didn't happen. What can I tell you? Here, if you wait a minute, I'll get it. Oops, no, the cartoons aren't in there. What happened to my cartoons?
No, they're there.
Where?
They're all in there. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what happened.
One more.
There was one more.
Okay.
There really was one more. But remember, the fact that God has all that confidence in you. You can't do it alone. This can't be done alone, and that's really the important piece of that. There we go. First pants, then your shoes. Because heaven knows, some days we don't know how to do it. Thank you.
You helped my family.
Oh, good.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the plug. Huh?
You should take this off.
Oh.
Because I could hear you talking. You never know. Here, you got it clipped on.
Oh, and also the CEU people, you have an additional evaluation to fill out. I think you know. We would like both of them back. So since we are on time, if you'll just bear with me for a few more minutes while you're filling out the evaluations, that'd be great. We wanted to acknowledge again our two generous funders, the John A. Bloom Foundation, for their support of this symposium. Let's give them a hand. And the American Parkinson Disease Association Information and Referral Center at Stanford is another funder. And we'd like to thank 3 organizations today that provided in-kind sponsorship. First is CurePSP. They're sponsoring the video recording of today's symposium. And as I mentioned earlier, CurePSP should probably have a DVD available in April of 2013. Let's give them a hand. And of special interest to all of our CEU folks, the Alzheimer's Association of Northern California and Northern Nevada chapter is sponsoring all of the CEUs for today, so that's wonderful. And then the Brain Support Network, which is the new name for the, what is it again? The Northern California Atypical Parkinsonism Caregiver Only Support Group. The Brain Support Network provided all of today's volunteer staff, and they're all members of our local caregiver support group dealing with the 4 atypical Parkinsonism disorders. And here are all of their names. Thank them all. Okay, and I'd like to thank our speakers and the breakout session moderators. I think we just had fantastic speakers the whole day today. I didn't think anybody was a laggard. I'd invite them all again. And thanks to our exhibitors, I'm sorry that the font size is so small on this, but I'll just read them off because the list is a short one. Arcadia Home Care and Staffing, Avenidas Rose Kleiner Center, Family Caregiver Alliance, Home Instead, Live Home, Living Well Assisted Living at Home, and Matched Caregivers. Thank you all. And thanks to all of these people who helped plan today's event. There were a lot of people who helped get the word out. There was a support group leader, Loretta, who helped get the word out. There were a lot. Christina Irving gave out flyers, and other Elka Tekin helped us get the word out. A lot of people, particularly at UCSF, gave us great suggestions for some of our speakers today. I was really hard-pressed to come up with a physical therapist speaker, and we got some great help on that. And there are 2 people in particular on the staff at the Stanford American Parkinson Disease Association Information Referral Center at Stanford. And I don't know if I see Denise back there. Denise did all of the CEU planning. She did all of the video recording, all of the equipment that we needed at the hotel. She worked with all of our volunteers. She just did a terrific job. And Stephen, no one could ever put on a conference without Stephen Russell. Stephen Russell organized all of the caregiver and exhibitor registration, the check-in, and the entire packet of materials you received today. So thank you so much.
The preceding program is copyrighted by the Board of Trustees of the Leland Stanford Junior University. Please visit us at med.stanford.edu.